بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا ورسولنا صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. We will continue on inshallah after our short break in the lessons in the Fiqh of Tahara, and we are still speaking about the nullifiers of wudoo, and we spoke about 8 different categories when it comes to nullifiers of wudoo. We lastly spoke about the nullifier which is eating the camel meat, and then we spoke about several masail related to that. The next nullifier that we wanted to touch on is ridda, apostasy, but before we get into that, I want to just add on something to the mas'ala of eating camel meat, because I had some brothers a little confused after that last halaqah that we had, and they were just wondering why is it that camel meat are eating it. As we said, al-qawl al-rajih, or their more correct opinion was that eating the meat of the camel nullifies wudoo. And the brothers were asking, why does it nullify the wudoo? Like, what's the illah behind it? And they were saying, it's halal to eat the camel meat. So if you're saying it breaks wudoo, that means that the camel meat is haram. And just to make something very, very crystal clear, brothers, is that just because it breaks your wudu, if you eat camel meat, and we said this is the most correct opinion on the issue, that doesn't mean that we're saying it is haram. Okay? That's not what it means at all whatsoever. Camel meat is halal tayyib, it's permissible to eat, it's from the good halal provision that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided His creation, and just because it nullifies wudu, it does not make it haram to eat. Okay? And then there was also a little bit of kickback with this mas'ala here, because some brothers, they are used to what's tradition back home, and especially for the ikhwa that follow the Shafi'i madhab, especially the ikhwa min al-Somali, it's very mu'tamid, it's known that eating camel meat does not nullify wudu. So this is an opinion, it is an opinion amongst Ahl al-Ilm, but we said the more correct opinion is that it does nullify wudu. A brother who said that no, the nahi was actually, it's misunderstood, and what it was is that some people ate some meat, some camel meat, and then someone had passed wind and nullified his wudu. So then, in order to save face for singling out the one Sahabi, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told them all to make wudu. And the real reason for the wudu is not from the camel meat, but rather it is for the fact that the Sahabi passed wind. And the reason why they all had to make wudu is just so that to save embarrassment for the one Sahabi. So some brother was mentioning this. However, I do not know of anything authentic about this. I've never heard about this. I've never seen any of the ulama speaking about this bab, mention this as a hujjah or as a dalil or anything. Okay? But we did mention the adillah that the opposing madahib hold, and we went over those hujjaj in depth and in detail. And today I want to just spend some time highlighting what some of the ulama said about why camel meat nullifies wudu. Okay? So why do we make wudu from the meat of a camel, and we don't make wudu from the meat of sheep or cow, or chicken or other meats? Okay, and just another point here is I just want to also, when speaking about these masail, we have to be very careful when it comes to analyzing the dalil in the Quran and the Sunnah. Because sometimes the approach we take, maybe we're so used to something and we want to just stick to one opinion that we kind of tend to turn a blind eye to everything else. So for example, if you're saying that, I hold so-and-so opinion, and this is the opinion of madhab Imam Shafi'i, and then I say, well, the hadith of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is very clear and explicit, and it says so and so, it's 100% authentic. then you just say, yeah, well, I don't know about that, or yeah, but I'm not going to follow that. Yani, we could be trekking dangerous waters when we're using that kind of language in combat of the next opinion. I do understand, and we do understand, if somebody were to say, even though Rasulullah said that in the hadith, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I'm going to follow the opinion of Imam Shafi'i, because if someone were to say that, because they believe that Imam Shafi'i knows that daleel and he somehow still came out with the other opinion, so because Imam Shafi'i is a alim and ulama al-Muslimin, he must know that daleel and he must have taken that into consideration. We understand that. Somebody's not outright عم يكذب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Okay, so we're not going to be that shallow to say somebody that says that could do that, but it could come off looking like that when you're saying to somebody, Rasulullah said this, and you're saying, no, I'm not going to follow that. Okay, so it could be dangerous. We want to do, as a Muslim, it's a very beautiful thing when you try to make ijtihad, and you try to research and see the different opinions and what different ulama spoke about and how they use their arguments, so on and so forth, okay? And it should be very hard upon a Muslim to, when they hear the statement of Rasulullah, a very clear hadith, and many ulama took that opinion, to say, no, we're not going to follow it, okay? It shouldn't be something easy for a Muslim to say, okay? So we have to be careful when it comes to these issues, okay? So why do we make wudoo from the meat of a camel, and we don't do it from the meat of the sheep or the cow, or eating other meats? Why from the meat of the camel? What is it? Okay? Now just to even add something on, if somebody were to eat the meat of swine, of khinzir, lahm khinzir, pig, okay, their wudoo is not nullified. Their wudoo is not nullified. If somebody were to eat lahm khinzir, it's definitely haram, it's definitely khabith, okay, but it is, so the person would be taking sin, but his wudoo is not nullified, okay? And Imam Ibn Battal, rahimahullah, said in Sharh of Sahih al-Bukhari, that if somebody mistakenly or purposely eats from the meat of swine, his wudoo is not nullified. So, a reason why we would want to know what is the illah for camel meat or eating camel meat, what is the illah for that to break somebody's wudu? What's the reason why we would want to know as Muslims the reasoning behind it? What do you guys think? As a Muslim, you as a Muslim, why would you want to know that the reasoning or the illah behind why eating camel meat breaks wudu?
It's an act of worship. It's part of an act of worship.
But do you have to know why you do every act of worship? Okay, why would you want to know? Should be pretty simple. Why would you want to know the illah? Think about it from a fiqh perspective. Why would you want to know the illah of a hukum? Generalize now. Zoom out. Why do you want to know the illah or the reasoning behind the hukum? From a fiqh aspect.
So know what to do in a situation or scenario? What else would it be?
To make qiyas. We want to know the illah behind the hukum so we can make qiyas, because if we come to know the illah or why eating camel meat nullifies wudu, then perhaps it may be applicable to other types of meat that we have to apply it as well, right? So this is why we would want to know the illah behind the hukum, to know if we have to make qiyas between this hukum and other ahkam of the sharia as well. Okay? But just to highlight, to think that for every ibadah we need to know the reason or the illah, okay, that's not correct. For every ibadah, for everything that is halal and haram, we have to understand why it's halal and haram. We have to know the reasoning and the wisdom behind it. That isn't correct, okay? As a Muslim, what do? وَقَالُوا سَمِعْنَا we don't say سَمِعْنَا وَعَصَيْنَا, we say سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا, or we have to ask more questions than حَنُطِيعْ. No. سمعنا وقالوا سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير. So as a Muslim, you hear and you obey. Okay, you don't necessarily need to know the reasoning and the wisdoms behind the ahkam al-shar'iyyah. If you come to know, alhamdulillah. If you're coming to learn it for the sake of fiqh and qiyas, alhamdulillah. But if you're not going to follow it, unless you know, then you have a major issue with your iman. You have to get it revised. Okay, and what's even worse than that is when people are asking for the wisdom or the illah or the reasoning behind it out of disapproval of the hukum. So why do we have to make wudoo from eating that as if they are disapproved with the hukum? So this is completely unacceptable. Okay, so we just have to know that for certain. All right. Now, whether you can do qiyas and ibadat in matters of worship is a disputed matter, and this matter is studied in usul al-fiqh. Okay, the short and simple answer on that is that when the illah, the cause or a reason for a hukum, when it is mentioned or it is known, then qiyas and analogy can be applied by a mujtahid. Okay? So this is the correct opinion. So there is such thing as qiyas in ibadat. That's when the illah is known or the illah can be derived by al-mujtahideen and ulama of Islam. Okay? However, you cannot make qiyas to make up a whole new ibadah. Okay, I just want to also highlight that. You cannot make a qiyas to make up, you cannot use a qiyas to make up a whole new ibadah. But qiyas can be applied in a narrow sense in certain matters in the ibadat. So you can derive rulings from one ibadat or one hukum of halal or haram, and you can apply it to something that is already established, okay, in ibadah. So how are some ways that the ulama and mujtahideen, how do they come to know the halal or the reasonings behind ahkam? First of all, it is through what? Al-Quran and Sunnah, through the nas, okay? Through the nas, through the Quran and the Sunnah. Because sometimes the Quran and the Sunnah, they specifically will tell you, you'll find directly in the Quran or in the hadith, authentic hadith, a specific illah is mentioned for the hukum. Okay, so we'll know the reason or the cause for the hukum directly from the Quran and the Sunnah. Like for example, why in Islam do you have to knock on somebody's door before you enter? You have to knock and get their permission before you enter. You don't just barge into the home. Why is that? We're commanded to. طبعا Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تدخلوا بيوتا غير بيوتكم حتى تستأنسوا وتسلموا على أهلها. Okay, all you who believe, do not enter houses other than your own until you greet the people. Okay, you make yourself known, you greet the people, you take permission. Okay, what a rough translation or what we can derive from the ayah. Okay, but why do we do that though? We're commanded to. Every ibadah in Islam, we're commanded to, that's why we do it. But in this specific ibadah here, or this hukum, we know the illah behind it, which is what? It's mentioned in a very clear hadith that is narrated in Sahih al-Bukhari. We'll see if anybody recalls, anybody's aware of it, before I give it to you.
The person may not want you to visit them, be interrupting them or intruding.
You're going to be intruding, but there's a hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was combing his hair with like a metal comb or something, and then somebody was like peeping into his house, and then he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what the meaning could be, if I knew that you had been peeping in, I would have thrust this into your eyes. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He prescribed seeking permission to protect from a glance to somebody's awrah. Awrah not necessarily meaning their private parts, but something they should not see. Okay? You should not look into somebody's house or just barge into somebody's house And one of the ilal that is mentioned is because it is a protection against the person seeing something they're not supposed to. Okay? Another way to find out the illah of a hukum is what? We said Quran and the Sunnah, what else? What if two Sahabi have different opinion? We'll go back to what is considered dalil to begin with. Quran and the Sunnah, then what else? Sahaba is dalil. Al-Ijma', consensus. Can you just give me a Phoenix Ibrahim? Yes, please. So the third way to find out a illah for a hukum is through ijma', through consensus, because that is the third source of evidence in Islam. Okay? For example, that is a child, if a child has an inheritance that is left for him, okay, let's say there's a child and the parents have passed away, and they left lots of wealth for this child, alright? There is to be a guardian appointed over the wealth. What is the reason for that? What is the reason for a guardian to supervise the wealth of the young child?
The child doesn't buy whatever he wants, or so somebody doesn't steal.
To protect the child's money, because the child is a child. Okay, does a child know what to do with $100,000? 7-year-old boy, does he know what to do with that kind of money? No. So in order to protect, al-hifadh ala mal of the yatim or the child, you appoint a guardian over it, because a child cannot be trusted. They don't know how to tasarrufathum, they're not developed enough, or mature enough to know how to deal with that kind of money. So in order to protect them from misusing it, or to protect their wealth from being misused by others. Okay, so that is the reason why. And the age of the child, the age is the illah. There's a guardian appointed over the wealth because of the age of the one who received it. If it's a grown man who received the wealth, is there a guardian appointed over it? Is there a guardian appointed over it? No, because his age, he already exceeded the age, so he knows how to be rational, he knows how to use it, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the age is the illah in this case by ijma' of the ulama. Alright? There's also different methods how the ulama can gather all the possible causes or reasons for a illah. Okay? They can come up with multiple different halal or potential halal of a mas'ala, and then they can kind of single out what they deem to be the most correct halal for the hukm al-shari. Okay? These matters, like I just said before, are stuff that are discussed in which science? Usul al-fiqh. And right now, what are we taking? Furu' al-fiqh. We're learning the furu', we're not learning usul here, okay? So, and in matters of ibadat, knowing the cause or the reason behind them is much less than other matters like al-mu'amalat, the fiqh of dealing with others. Okay, Ash-Shatibi rahimahullah, he said that the origin in ibadat is that it's a ibadah, meaning that we do not know the reason or cause or illah behind it. Okay? This is the origin, as the akh mentioned, for every ibadah we do, the illah behind it is simply because it is a ibadah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded it, and we say, سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا. Okay, why is Salat al-Fajr 2 rak'ah? Why is it Dhuhr 4 rak'ah? Why is it Dhuhr and the Asr prayed silently, quietly, while Fajr, Maghrib and Isha they're prayed out loud? Why? What is the reason behind it? Why, when we wipe over the khuf in wudoo, we wipe the top of it, not the bottom of it? Why? Why in wudoo we wash 1, 2 or 3 times, no less than 1, no more than 3? Why? All because it is a ibadah. Okay? So the majority of the ibadat, the majority of the acts of worship that the Muslims engage in. We don't know what the illah is behind it, but we know that we're supposed to do it out of fulfilling or submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which goes back to the pure meaning of al-Islam, okay? So for example, if somebody walked out of the washroom, they had completed their wudoo, and then they pass wind, they have to go right back to the washroom and make wudoo again, even though the wind that they pass is not najis. But then how come if somebody burps, they don't have to make wudoo when it's similar in nature, a wind or a gas being expelled from the body, okay? This, like we just said, it is all because it is a ibadah. This is the concept we're trying to drive here, is because it is a ibadah, the majority of ibadat, we don't know the halal behind them, okay? So in addition to us hearing and obeying, we do know as Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah what is the correct opinion, okay, amongst Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, is that all of the ibadat or all of the ahkam al-shari'ah, they do have ilal. Okay, even though we might not know them, they do have ilal. So there is some groups, some fiqh schools that differ, or some even madahib al-aqadiyya that they differ, that they say that there's no ilal behind the ahkam al-shari'ah, purely out of just submission to Allah. As a Muslim, you follow it purely out of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there is Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the correct opinion held amongst Ahl Sunnah is that there is ilal for all the ahkam al-shari'ah, okay? And we say after saying وَقَالُوا سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا, we say لَا يُسْأَلُ عَمَّا يَفْعَلُ وَهُمْ يُسْأَلُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not asked about what He does, but rather the creation are asked. Alright, so we do not question Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is Allah Azza wa Jalla is not the one who is questioned. We are the ones who are going to be questioned. So the Sharia says to make wudu from eating the meat of a camel, then just like every detail of the Sharia, whether it is something that we're supposed to do or something we're supposed to stay away from, is beneficial and full of wisdom, even if the entire globe or everyone on the face of the earth says otherwise. That's our belief as a Muslim. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala said that there's nothing in the Sharia except that there's a wisdom and reasons behind them. Sometimes people know it and sometimes people don't know it. In Sahih Muslim, Mu'adh, he asked Aisha, Mu'adh asked Aisha radiallahu anha, what's the reason that menstruating women need to make up the fasting they missed? And they do not need to make up the salah that they missed. Aisha radiallahu anha, she said, are you a Haruriyya? She said to this woman, Mu'adh, are you a Haruriyya? What she meant by that is, are you a Kharijiyya? Okay? Are you from the Khawarij? Aisha radiallahu anha, she may have assumed that this lady was from al-Khawarij due to the question, or she could be implying, okay, that these are the types of questions that al-Khawarij ask, okay? And that this is the type of mentality that Khawarij have. Okay? Because you know in the hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he said to all the Sahaba that you're going to belittle your ibadah next to the ibadah of al-Khawarij. So she's asking why, when the menstruating woman, she's on her cycle, she has to make up the fasts after, not the salawat. Then she said, the woman asked, she's like, I am not from amongst al-Haruriyya, rather I'm just asking to know. Then Aisha radiallahu anha, she said something very beautiful here. She said, كَانَ يُصِيبُنَا ذَلِكَ فَنُؤْمَرُ بِقَضَاءِ الصَّوْمِ وَلَا نُؤْمَرُ بِقَضَاءِ الصَّلَاةِ. She said, that used to happen to us, okay, during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Women used to get menstruation. We used to be commanded to repeat the fast, not to repeat the salah. So pretty much, it's a ibadah. We don't know exactly why. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded it, so we follow. Very simple and clear. Now, as it pertains to this mas'ala, the ulama, they discussed the illah, or attempted to find the illah for it, the issue of why we make wudu from eating camel meat. Okay? The general overall opinion of the Hanabila is that this specific mas'ala here is a matter of ibadah, like we just reiterated over and over again, and we don't know the reason behind it. It's just a matter of ibadah. The second opinion is that it is a meat touched by fire. And we took the hadith pertaining to that. However, eating the meat of the camel is different than the issue pertaining to making wudoo from that which has been touched by fire. And this is a very, very weak rationale and a very weak opinion. Because in the hadith where Rasulullah was asked about making wudoo from eating the meat of sheep, he made it optional to the one asking. Then immediately after that, when he asked about making wudoo from eating the meat of camel, he commanded him to do so. So the mas'ala of making wudu rather from meat that is touched by fire is a different mas'ala than eating the camel meat, because we know that the hukm of that, as we took in the previous lessons, that this hukm of making wudu from eating meat touched by fire has been abrogated. Okay? So eating camel meat is something that necessitates wudu whether it's touched by fire or not. And that is made clear from the hadith where Rasulullah he was asked about the meat of a sheep, and the answer he gave was optional. You can make wudu, you don't have to make wudu. But when it came to camel meat, he said yes, you must make wudu. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And that being said, had it been the correct reason that the illah is that it's because it's cooked by fire, then Rasulullah he would have answered and he gave a ruling to both the meat of the sheep and the camel. That would have been the same. Because if the illah why we don't eat camel meat, or why we have to make wudu from eating camel meat, if the illah for was that it's touched by fire, then obviously the sheep would be touched by fire as well, so they would both nullify wudu. But that is not the case. Because Rasulullah he gave different answers, okay, that clearly shows it, that is not the illah, and that why it renders this opinion to be super weak. Okay? A third opinion, they say, is that the camel has the nature of a shaitan. And there are various interpretations to this. Under this third opinion, there are various slightly different interpretations. Some ulama, they said that the reason is because the camel is surrounded by shayateen. And there's a hadith where Rasulullah he deterred from making salah in the camel's resting places, or near the camel's resting places. Okay? And it's not due to najasa, but rather because there are shayateen around it. They said, okay, this is the ulama that I'm mentioning. You can just tell them just to keep the noise. The narration says, فَإِنَّهَا خُلِقَتْ مِنَ الشَّيَاطِينِ, that verily they were created, meaning camels, they were created from devils. Okay, Ibn Hibban, rahimahullah ta'ala, he explained this narration, okay, that verily the camels were created from devils. He said that this narration means that there are shayateen with it, or near it, or around it, meaning the camel resting place. What's his justification for this interpretation? He said, because the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam rode on a camel, and he made salah while he was riding on a camel. Okay, that's been confirmed. So had the camel been an actual shaitan, then the Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wouldn't make salah on it. Okay, you understand Ibn Hibban's reasoning behind that? He said it means that there are shayateen near and around it. Another explanation, فَإِنَّهَا خُلِقَتْ مِنَ الشَّيَاطِينِ, was that the camels were created from shayateen. The other ulama, another interpretation is that they have the nature of shayateen. For example, in some cultures, like especially some Arab societies, that when somebody is doing, when a child's being rebuked for being very wild and bad, you say that to shaitan, or don't be a shaitan, or this guy is a shaitan or a jinni. Sometimes some Arabic cultures will use that. Okay, that's not a good way to raise kids, of course, by calling them shayateen and jinn and whatnot. However, it's something that's used even in English. Sometimes we say that when someone's being evil or they're acting bad, we say this guy's like a devil. Okay, so it's not necessarily meaning that we're actually believing that they are a devil, they're a jinni shaitan that's made from nar. Okay, that's not what it means. It means that you're comparing the nature of that person or the thing or the child, whatever, to a shaitan. Okay? They're rebellious, wild, and kind of bad, out of control kind of action and behavior. Okay? So it's used to refer to somebody's wild or enraged or bad habits or lack of deen or akhlaq. So due to the nature of resembling the nature of a shaitan. Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah, wal-Dhahabi rahimahullah, they say that when Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, when he was on his way to liberate Bayt al-Maqdis, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to liberate it from the Yahud. Ameen. When Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu was on his way to liberate Bayt al-Maqdis, Jerusalem, okay, he went humbly in a stitched up thobe, and on the way there they brought him a horse to ride it. And then the horse, it started walking from, sometimes the horse, it walks with pride. It has this way of walking, it's very proud in its stride, okay? And the word for pride in Arabic, khuyala, and what's a horse called in Arabic? They come from the same root word. Come from the same root, okay? So Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, when his horse started walking with that pride, he said, stop, stop. And he got off the horse, and then he said, I never knew that people rode shayateen. Bring me back my camel. Radiallahu anhu. Okay? Did Umar radiallahu anhu mean or intend that the horse he was riding was an actual shaitan? ما كنت أظن أن الناس يركبون الشياطين. I never knew that people ride shayateen. Did he mean that actually the horse is a shaitan? No, but rather he meant that the arrogant walk of the horse is a characteristic that is similar to something of the nature of a shayateen. Okay? Similar to that, some of the ulama, they said that the camel has some of the nature of the shayateen in them. So the point of deterring from making salah near the camel's resting place and referring to them as being created from shayateen, فَإِنَّهَا خُلِقَتْ مِنَ الشَّيَاطِينِ, is that some of the ulama say that if you make your salah near the camels, okay, the resting place where they are, they begin to rampage and act wild, and that would cause somebody distraction in their salah, some interruption in their salah. So this will detract from their salah, their khushu' and their concentration and whatnot. So it is a term given to them due to their behavior, that their behavior has some of the nature of a shayateen. Now sheep, on the other hand, they're a lot more calm and peaceful animals, okay? That may be why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he allowed making salah near the resting places of the sheep, okay? As to why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he made the salah on the camel, but deterred from making salah near them, the reason behind that the ulama say is that the camels tend to have this shaitanic behavior when you're around them. Okay, they have this behavior at times and they go wild and act enraged and whatnot. When you are around them, like within their vicinity, but when you're riding on them, they're a lot more calm and peaceful. Okay? And by the way, making mention of this not out of expertise of animals, okay? I don't know much about camels and horses and whatnot. I've never rode a horse before. I rode a camel when I was a very young boy. I don't remember anything about it much. So, but these are what the ulama, what they say about these opinions here. So I'm just relating that as is, alright? So it's not out of personal experience. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that every camel hump has a shaitan in it. Or every camel hump has a shaitan. And it's created from shaitan, so it has shaitanic powers. And Ibn al-Qayyim, he says that they are shaitanic camels, and the one who eats camel meat is affected by their nature. So, because of that, one has to make wudoo from eating camel meat. Okay? And shaitan, and he goes on to explain, shaitan is created from fire, and fire is extinguished with water. So the effect is the nature, the shaitanic nature of the camel that may be affecting somebody from eating camel meat, it would be extinguished also by water. So as a result, the person is commanded to make wudu after eating its meat. Okay? So similar to that is the issue of anger. It's from the shaitan, and the devil was created from fire, and fire is extinguished by water. So when one becomes angry, he should make wudoo. So it's a similar logic behind the hukum there, okay? Just as a side note, that this isn't an authentic hadith, okay? That anger comes from the devil, and the devil was created from fire, and fire is extinguished by water, and so on. This is a weak hadith, okay? But just for argument's sake, we'll mention here. So the bottom line is, some of the ulama said wudoo is due to its shaitanic nature, to turn off that shaitanic nature that may befall somebody from eating the meat. At the end of the day, all of this that we discussed is all ijtihad from the ulama. Okay? It's all pretty much an educated guess they are making. But there's no real proof for the illah or the reason for why wudoo is required from eating the meat of camel. So we say, Wallahu a'lam, that the more correct opinion of why we make wudoo from eating camel meat is why? Because it's a ibadah. Jazakallahu khairan. Because it's a ibadah, that's why. Because we do not know the illah or the cause or the reason for sure. Similarly to what Aisha radiallahu anha said about making up a siyam after menstruating and not salah, okay? So we go over these aqwal of Ahl al-Ilm so we can learn them, so we can increase our knowledge and have a deeper understanding on the matter here, okay? Now the next nullifier of al-wudu, and the final one, is ridda, apostasy. However, we will conclude here inshallah. Next week we will continue on the continuation of this series, and we're nearing the end of it. Just a note though, is that because of the time change tomorrow, the halaqah next Saturday, inshallah ta'ala, instead of being after Salat al-Asr, will be after Salat al-Maghrib, inshallah. Okay, so the halaqah will be after Salat al-Maghrib, which will be approximately around 5 p.m. or just shy of 5 p.m. Okay, as Asr will be very early, it might be a little bit difficult to make for some people, so the halaqah inshallah will be after Maghrib instead of after Salat al-Asr. And we will conclude with this. جزاكم الله خيرا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.